Hello, everybody. Ryan and Luke here, coming at you with the first Blu-ray Brothers live stream. And we didn't really plan. Me and him were talking, and we just decided, hey, let's just do a live stream. So, hey, Luke, how are you doing?
Not too bad.
That's always good when people are not too bad. There might be a slight lag between me and Luke, so if we get into discussion, there may be a couple seconds in between us talking, but we're going to try our best not to speak over each other and go crazy. But as you can already tell, we are talking about 70s cinema, which is one of my favorite eras in cinema, if not my favorite. And I know Luke really likes 70s films a lot too, and they're just highly influential for so many different reasons. But in a little bit, he has a list of I think the top 50 rated on IMDb. When we're just going to go down some of that list, for those of you who are not familiar with 70s cinema, I know most people that are probably watching this are, but I'll go ahead and just say it is a huge, huge, you know, important era in film for many reasons, but mainly because I actually think, as we know, 50s and 60s, the studios were pouring so much money into these huge budget films with bull in them, that make a lot of money. Well, the thing is, by the time it was like, 65 or so, people stopped going to see these movies. So movies that were making tons of money 10 years earlier were not making any money. So everything that they were putting out there, people were not watching a lot of it. People were not going into the theater. So there's people that in the 60s thought, going to the movies within 20 years it was going to be absolute. Now there were still some films that made a lot of money, just flopped, and they didn't know what to do, and so they had to change. I mean, a lot of the studios started going bankrupt, and a lot of the studio heads just continued to try to make decisions to benefit them, and it ended up being a huge flop. And then you have, I always forget what they're called, but there's the group of filmmakers that came out of film school, like Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, Peter Bogdanovich, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, all those guys, Brian De Palma, all those guys were coming out of film school, and they couldn't get into the studio system because people did not really want to actually finance their movies, so they had to do everything on their own, and they had to reinvent everything. And because of that, they started making personal films. And so a lot of the people from that era in the 70s, if you notice, films start to get grittier, they start to get more personal, they start to explore coming of age themes, sexuality type stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff that was not being approached at all in cinema before that. And so then you get movies like The Last Picture Show, which I think was late 60s, but 68, 69 with like Midnight Cowboy, those were the turn point, and that's when all these films started coming out that really started showcasing 70s cinema. And that older people that are probably like were growing up in the 50s cinema age that were actually, that I've heard people say 70s, and of course if you're just growing up in glamorized Hollywood, all the language, nudity, and violence, of course it would seem like trash, but 70s cinema definitely paved the way and saved film as we know it, in my opinion, because then you got all the the Godfathers, you got the Star Wars films starting out, Apocalypse Now, all those guys, Taxi Driver, all those guys started making all these awesome movies for low budgets, and then fast forward 10 years later, in the 80s, those guys are pretty much in charge of the, not in charge of the studios, but that crew is basically leading the pack for Hollywood as we know it. So they became the mainstream. And so that's just kind of a little brief synopsis of what the 70s did. So, Luke, what are some of your favorite films of the 70s that you could just think of? right offhand.
Well, like you said, you have like a lot of more grittier films, more kind of they feel a bit more realistic at times, and I guess that comes down to the lower budgets and things like that. But when I think of the '70s, I think of like Jaws, Rocky, obviously Star Wars, Alien as well. I think, um, and they're all from like great directors. George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Ridley Scott. Um, And I don't know, there's just something about them. There's something about the '70s films that just has its own kind. I guess every decade has its own kind of feel and like its own kind of stamp, and you can kind of go, oh, that's an '80s action film, or oh, that's a whatever. But yeah, the '70s, yeah, there's just something really cool about them. And is that? I mean, you know about this kind of thing a lot more than I do, but wasn't the '70s when like the exploitation films started coming into it? Was it around
Yeah, a
then?
lot of, I mean, at also like exploitation films, black exploitation,
Hmm.
and just like a huge. It's almost like, like just an explosion of movies that were just to see some of these movies, you'd have to go to Europe. They only made these kind of movies in Europe and in Asia. It was
Yeah.
like the first time that American films started getting that kind of, I guess you could say, crazy.
Hmm.
But how old wasn't Steven Spielberg like really young when he made Jaws? Wasn't he like 25 or 26?
I think so, yeah. I'm not entirely sure, but that sounds
But
about right.
the funny thing is that everybody that you talk to in regards to like, or you see interviews with the filmmakers that made all these influential films, like um, mainly like Jaws and The Godfather and some other ones too. But if you like actually listen to interviews, Francis Ford Coppola thought he was fired, and like he was making the movie, even thought he thought the studio hated him, and he was any day was going to get fired. Spielberg was worried about getting fired. All these people were that were coming out with these crazy, awesome movies at that time. It was just like such a difference that they thought they were going to get canned. In fact, I think Coppola thought he was fired, and so he went to work and he shot the scene in The Godfather with Al Pacino when he, um, is in that famous. I don't want to spoil it, but the famous Louis' restaurant scene. And
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was like, you know what, I'm fired anyways, so I'm gonna go ahead and just shoot this scene, whatever. And that's the scene that actually made them go, oh, we're not gonna fire you. We're not gonna fire Pacino because I think Pacino was actually slightly like I think he was like technically already fired, but they kept him after that.
Hmm.
So it's really crazy when you actually read about all these movies that came out at that time period.
Well, you can even take that to Star Wars because when George Lucas was making that, the it's always said that most of the people who worked on Star Wars thought it was rubbish. They were like, "What is this?
Yeah,
This stupid thing with these stupid aliens? This is going to be crap." I think even Harrison Ford said he wasn't quite sure what was going on. And then, of course, George Lucas, there's the stress on him that he was making this film, that the money was going into it, and they'd gone over to Tunisia to film, and there was like, the sets were damaged, and he was really stressed out, and he had like I'm not sure if he had a heart attack, but he had like heart palpitations and was taken to hospital, and he was diagnosed like acute stress or something. So, that was one of those things where it
yeah.
paid off, I guess, but it was, it definitely wasn't a film where they're like, yeah, this is going to be like a huge film and it's going to be great. They were kind of like, I'm not sure where this is going to go, but
It's funny because you kind of get into that like in regards to George Lucas. People, they talk about how Star Wars and really Jaws, how like Spielberg mainly at first, and then George Lucas they kind of ushered in the blockbuster. And it's funny because you hear people say that um, not only did George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, partially um, like save cinema, there's also people out there that say, yeah, they saved it and then they destroyed it by making it to where you had to make a blockbuster. So I always thought that was really kind of interesting how people thought that way. But I'm not that. I guess me and you are both really optimistic when it comes to those kind of movies, and so like we, um, love all of those movies, even though yes, they are blockbusters. That
mm,
just means they're doing something right.
yeah,
But
yeah, I do, yeah, I do think movies like Star Wars. I mean, that's got to be one of the most important films in the history of cinema, just from a kind of an impact point of view. You know, I mean, that was. Can you name a film before Star Wars that was that big and had all the merchandise and had everyone in the world knowing what it was? You know, I mean, there've been some amazing movies, but I don't know. There probably has been, but for me, you know, Star Wars was such a massive, just pop culture explosion, and that kind of paved the way for basically what we're seeing now these days. You know, all the money's being made with these big franchises, and Marvel, Star Wars is coming back around again. You know, superhero films, etc., and blockbusters.
And funny because it's just, I mean, nowadays you don't really see people lined up around the blocks like to see a movie, but back then for Star Wars, and I mean, people were like wrapped around the block. I mean, it's just, it's
No,
crazy because I mean, I don't know. So I really wish I kind of grew up at that time period to actually see how all that stuff came to be. And yeah, I just really like it. One other thing I wanted to bring up too was how like there's little things in 70s cinema that people like me and you that actually are, you know, we like making films, and sometimes me and you think our ideas are maybe kind of crazy, maybe people won't like them, but I'm always reminded about the story that Francis Ford Coppola talks about when he was writing the script for Patton, because he wrote this screen for Patton in 1970s Patton, and I think it was rewritten a couple times by other people, but the main thing that actually stuck in the film was the opening scene where George C. Scott is standing in front of the big flag, and it is like the iconic scene in the film. Well, when he wrote the screenplay, the studios hated it. They say, "Man, you're not gonna, you know, make a movie with this as the opening. You don't do that." And they actually fired him for it. But his credit on the film still stayed. And so when Oscar season came around, he won an Oscar for Best Screenplay, and that's one of the best, you know, iconic images of that movie. So there's that quote that he says in like some of the making of Godfather stuff. He's like, "All you aspiring filmmakers out there, everything that people are telling you now that is not a good idea, it's too crazy, that's the same stuff that they're firing you for, is the same stuff you're going to win an Oscar for a couple years from now." Like,
yeah,
and so that's kind of how they all played out in the 70s. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have anything else to add, then maybe we could start. You could start reading the list of the IMDb list of the 70s films.
yeah, sure. As I said to you, it was like there's not an option to look at the highest rated 50 films from the 70s, but it was like mainly like Indian films and things like that, which didn't even have like posters. So I don't know what the deal was there, and we wouldn't know half of them anyway. So uh, there is a page I'm on now that's called the most popular feature films released between 1970 and 1979. So we just go through a few of them, and number 50 is Life of Brian. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
I have not seen
Oh,
it.
have you seen it?
No, I've started watching Monty Python. I watched The Holy Grail a few weeks ago, but I haven't seen this one yet.
I'm like, serious. I love it. Yeah, it's. I mean, I love Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but the I think in ways Life of Brian is actually funnier because the satire, it never really gets old. Whereas like Monty Python, I love every second of it, but it's almost a better movie to watch it like 20 minutes at a time because it's so much to. I don't know. That's just my opinion, but Life of Brian's really good. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. We've got a couple of Disney films here at 49 and 47. Is The Aristocats and Robin Hood. What are your thoughts on those two?
I never actually saw the Aristocats,
It's a
but
good one. I like it.
and I'm not really all that crazy about Robin Hood. I know. I mean, I
I don't.
grew up with it, but I don't know. I just don't really care for it anymore.
I think I've only seen it a couple of times as a kid. I can't really remember it, but I quite like The Aristocats. It's a fun one. We got The Great Gatsby, number 48, with Robert Redford, Bruce Dern. Haven't seen that one myself.
That's another that screenplay was written by Francis Ford Coppola as well.
Interesting.
I mean, as a fan of the book, I think it's a good adaptation. I think Robert Redford. I think
You still there?
yeah. Did I just stop?
Yeah, you
I
broke
think
up
it
for a
has to
bit.
do with. I think it just has to do with the lag. I'm
Yeah.
not crazy about that adaptation of um, Great Gatsby.
Hmm. What else we got? Saturday Night Fever, John Travolta. Haven't seen that one either.
I've only seen parts of it. I don't know.
Oh,
I
okay.
I was never really allowed to watch it all the way through, like when I was a kid. So I never really got around to watching it.
The Sting, which I have, but I haven't watched it yet.
Oh,
Again,
it's such a great film.
yeah, I've heard it's really good.
Incredibly. I mean, it's like entertainment to the max. It's such a great film. I love it.
Cool. We have Papillon.
It's was it 1973 when that came
Yeah.
out?
Yep.
Yeah, I love that movie with Steve McQueen. It's by the same director as Patton and Planet of the Apes, Franklin J. Shafter, and it's a really good story. Basically, it takes place like over like 20 years, and it's Steve McQueen's character trying to escape from Devil's Island prison in French Guiana, and it's a powerful film. It's great. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, my grandpa used to have it on videotape, and I've seen bits of it, and I actually enjoyed what I saw, even though I was quite young. So I'd really like to revisit that. American Graffiti, George Lucas film.
Yeah, that's a good movie. I like it.
Yeah, another one I own but haven't watched yet.
I
uh,
mean, I haven't seen it a lot, but I like it. I like what I saw.
mm, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, this is where I feel out of my depth because again, I've seen bits of it, not the whole thing. Uh,
It is incredibly disturbing and violent, but yet you don't see blood.
yeah,
For like see movie, that's one of the most disturbing movies ever. But you don't ever actually see, you know, grotesque, murders. It's everything. All of it's like in the imagination. I mean, it's crazy. It's so good though.
yeah. I might watch it in October actually. Uh, you know, doing the horror films and stuff. Um, okay, here's one. I'd just be interested if you know anything about it. Salo, or the 120 Days of Sodom.
Yeah, it's basically like considered one of the most disturbing movies ever made. Criterion put it out,
Yeah,
and I've never seen it. Um, I do want to see it one day, just because I'm one of those type of people that has to see all these controversial films. But
yeah, just to see.
apparently, if you read the descriptions of what goes on in that movie, like it's almost enough to make you not want to watch it. I mean, there's some disturbing stuff.
What gets me about that film is I always used to see it on Blu-ray in my local store, and the front cover it's just got these women just naked bent over on the front, and you can see everything, and
Yeah,
I'm like, kids can come in and look at this crap. I can believe it. Ugh.
yeah, it's out of print now on Criterion, I think.
Uh,
I don't know if I'm after reading some of the stuff about it. I mean, I don't know if I could ever actually. It's not that I'd be grossed out. It's just why would I want to subject myself to that some of that disturbing stuff?
yeah, I think sometimes some people go too far, but I don't know. I am kind of morbidly interested,
Um,
just to see, you know. Um,
looks like Thomas Pollock. Is it Pollock or Pollock?
Pollock, I guess, yeah.
Paul. He said, "Don't watch
Is it on the Q&A or
Solo
comment? Is it?
for a second." Q&A.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, Thomas.
So
Okay.
I guess
So we
it's not.
have
I guess
Chinatown.
it's not an inspiring movie. Oh, I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, I know you love Chinatown.
Have you seen it?
No, again. That's why I'm skipping a couple of these, but I'm just saying I'm skipping a couple of these,
Oh, okay.
on the list. I mean, yeah. Next is Annie Hall. I'm sure you've got a lot
Yes.
to say about that.
I feel like I've talked about that film so much that it's almost kind of repetitive. I don't want people to say, "Man, Ryan will not shut up about that movie. He's getting really annoying." Um,
Nah, go for it. I want to hear what you think about it because I recently rewatched it, and so not rewatched it, I watched it for the first time, and I can't remember what you said about it in previous videos. So
oh wait, real quick. Thomas put Salo is a film meant to be a representation of Italian fascism, but I
mm,
don't care. It's disgusting, sadistic shit. So,
yeah,
and I completely I understand. I knew that's what it kind of represented. I'd much rather watch something else to get that point across. But
yeah,
Annie Hall, um, Woody Allen's one of my favorite filmmakers. Annie Hall is my third favorite movie. I love it. But the reason why I love it more than other films of that genre is that the fact it's a comedy, but a drama, and it's a romance, or like a romantic comedy, but yet it's not a romantic comedy. And I think the one thing I like the most about it is the fact that it's so out of the box in terms of everything it does. It's nonlinear storytelling. It has animation, subtitles, um, just it breaks the wall and he talks directly to the camera, and has that surreal element to it. So it's like a bunch of stuff into one film, and I love every single second of it. And it all happened in 90 minutes. And I
yeah,
know you just recently watched it for the first time.
yeah, yeah. I was struck by that as well. That it was so good and was again only about 90 minutes long. I just agree with everything you say. Basically, I thought it was just brilliant. Just yeah, absolutely loved it. All right, another one I know you probably have a bit to say on is Halloween from '78, another horror film.
I'm trying to think of what movie that is. To be honest with you, I saw it so long ago, I can't even remember. I'm just joking. Um, I kind of can talk about forever about that movie too, but if you go back to John Carpenter week during, I think it was July. Yeah, I think it was in July. I
Yeah,
made a video talking about how it inspired me to make movies and all that stuff. So yes, I love
yeah,
Halloween.
yeah. That's a good video. Um, Beneath the Planet of the Apes is on this list. I'm not sure why. I enjoyed it, but I know that it's not really held in high regard. So
Wow, it's really on that list.
yeah, I
Well, I
mean,
guess because it did make it, maybe because it made a lot of money. So I mean, I guess that's probably why.
yeah,
I like it too.
it says most popular, not the highest rated again. But then there's Blazing Saddles, classic comedy.
He rode a blazing saddles. He wore a shining star. Yeah, I watch that movie all the time. I love it. Gene
uh,
Wilder is that's my favorite Gene Wilder film. I love it.
yeah, he's awesome. The Warriors, which I've seen bits of again growing up. My dad used to watch that a lot, but haven't properly watched it.
It's a really good movie. I think it was. I guess I was when I first saw it. it was like I got like the unrated director's cut DVD of of
Yeah,
Walter, and I watched it and I was like, I expected it to be kind of graphic and gory, but it really
yeah,
wasn't. But I enjoyed it. I think it's. I mean, I hate using the term overrated, but I guess I was just expecting more, so I was slightly let down by it. I
yeah.
don't hate it. I just didn't think it was the greatest thing in the world.
Hmm. And then we have Superman, which is, I guess, probably like the first huge like superhero film that was like pretty big, 1978. What are your thoughts on that one?
I love it. I think it's dated. Like, really love the movie. I love the first half though better than the second half because it's almost like two movies. You got the origin story, then you have the normal traditional,
Yeah,
you know, superhero story like the second half, and I just think it's completely entertaining. I love it.
yeah, I quite like it. I prefer the second film, but it's a really good one. Now I'm just looking. There's a few Bond films on here. Um, hmm. Okay, we got Diamonds Are Forever, Moonraker,
Wow,
and
that's funny because time.
The Spy Who Loved
Uh,
Me.
wow, you just that's funny because The Spy Who Loved Me is my favorite Bond movie. Moonraker is, um, I guess you could say the guilty pleasure Bond movie that I like.
Yeah,
Like,
guilty pleasure. Yeah,
the thing is, I don't like you. I hate that term, but I don't think it's as nearly as bad as people say. Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and go on the record. I like Moonraker more than I like Diamonds Are Forever. So
yeah. Diamonds Are Forever is okay. It's not strong. I don't think. Um, again, I don't know how this list has been composed really, but yeah, The Spy Who Loved Me is definitely one of the best Bond films by far. And then just to skip back,
Deep Throat
we
come out
have
in the 70's, or was that?
I think that was the 70s. Yeah, I know who'd like that film. Anyway, moving on. We got The Deer
I
Hunter,
never saw that. Oh man, yeah,
which again I
you're right in
watched.
front of me.
But awesome. It's just
I never
an
did bring
amazing
my
film.
all my war movies back downstairs. So yeah,
Oh yeah, from your skit.
yeah. So I mean, I no, I mean the ones that I showed off. So I mean, I still have stacks of war movies up in this room.
Hmm. And then the Holy Grail's on here, the other Monty Python, um, which again is a great comedy. But I'm looking forward to seeing Life of Brian as well.
Yeah.
And then we have Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Come with me and you'll be a world of pure. Okay, I'm done. I love that. I grew up with it. I like it a lot.
I just love that scene on the boat where it just gets mental.
Yeah. It gets. I remember getting incredibly disturbed when I was a kid, and I would see that part. You see that like
There's something
snake
like,
go across the guy's face.
yeah. But I think that's a great film. I really do love that. Gene Wilder's fantastic in that film.
If you want to view paradise.
You stole fizzy lifting drinks. You get nothing.
It's funny. I was watching The Godfather Part Two the other day for like the millionth time, and my wife Ashley was like, every time Michael Corleone starts yelling at that one part of the movie when he's like, "My home." Every time we hear it, when Al Pacino like does that huge scream, we're like, man, that sounds exactly like uh, the scene in Willy Wonka when Gene Wilder's like, "You get nothing. Good day, sir." But there's a charm to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory too. It's just
Yeah. And then we have a couple of horror films, Carrie and The Exorcist. Now, I've seen both of these, but when I was a teenager, and I really don't have that much of a hold on what I think of them, to be honest. Um, I'm sure you've seen them and have more of an opinion than I do.
I'm a huge I'm a huge Stephen King fan too, but for some reason I never. I mean, I like Carrie. I think it's a good movie. I just, it's not my favorite. Now, The Exorcist. Um, when I saw that movie for the first time, it was when the uh, version the drought, and I had to rent it. I forget how I got it. I could not buy it because I wasn't old enough. But I ended up going to and I read the. I just remember like just being. I just loved it. I loved the fact that it was way more of a character study of like the mom and like a psychological thriller than an actual horror film. And I like got into all these like exorcism type TV shows where it talked about like all that. Like I got into like some really crazy stuff around that time period because I was like so fascinated by that whole subject. And so it did have a huge impact on me, and I still, you know, I can't. It's definitely a movie I can't watch all the time. Like I could watch it maybe once.
Yeah. Um, then there's Rocky, which I reviewed on Wednesday. Just an awesome film. Anything you want to say about that?
I guess I mean to say something that hasn't really been said about it, like or you don't hear people talk about it a lot. Great film, and I don't think Sylvester Stallone gets enough credit. You know, for most people are like, he's a terrible actor. He everything he says sounds stupid in a movie. Like, yeah, well, with the they kind of give him a hard time and like, uh, but if you actually watch like the first Rocky film, it's very well acted, and the script. I mean, that movie is a movie that the director of that film doesn't really have a huge trademark style, I guess you could say, of filmmaking, in my opinion. And so, like,
Yeah.
the script is really what propelled that film. And even the little stuff of him walking on the street and like talking to the guys that are on the side of the street, like little details about that film is really what makes it great. And
Yeah.
I don't think Sylvester Stallone gets enough credit, for that part of the film, but I love it.
Yeah, I did mention, him writing the film in my review and stuff, and yeah, I agree. Then we're getting to like the big, like heavy hitters now. We got Jaws, which for me is just one of the best films ever made, I think. It's just, I mean, at its core, it's kind of a B movie, but it's just done so well, and the acting, everything about it's just amazing. I love it.
Yeah. I think my favorite scene in that movie is when he's I don't know. There's a lot of great scenes in that movie, but I love the beginning when Brody's just walking through the town. You kind of get to see the town,
Yeah,
and he's just like walking through doors, going out the back streets, and it's just I don't know. There's something There's just film. But I love the scene when he's like looking at that book about the sharks, and he kind of goes back and forth from his face to the book.
yeah,
And I also like it when the kids are in the boat and he's on in his house and he's like, get out of that boat, and then the wife's like, come on man, come on, you can't, and then she sees the book and she's like, get out of the water.
yeah. I remember when it came out on Blu-ray in 2012, and it was re-released in the cinemas as well. We went to see it in the cinema, and that was just such an awesome experience to see that on the big screen. Just brilliant.
Gosh, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
I would love to see that in the movies.
And I guess we'll just go through the top 10 quickly. Number 10 is Godfather Part 2.
I hate it. Nah.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't.
Yeah.
But there may or may not be a video coming out about
the first two are head and shoulders above the third film, but yeah. So for me, it's been 5 years actually since I've seen the whole trilogy, and it was the first time I watched it in 2009, and I love them. And the second one for me is my favorite of the two. Just an epic film, brilliant. Number 9, Taxi Driver. And man, this is where you really do see like how many great films came out in the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, Rocky, Jaws, Godfather, Godfather Part 2, Taxi Driver. I mean, Star Wars, literally Alien, some of the absolute best films ever made. When you really think about it, the 70s were pretty huge.
But like, you know, what's cool about the 70s, like when you named off some of those films, is that some of those films and like Star Wars and stuff like that, if you go back, I mean, you've been watching a lot of the, you know, Fritz Lang films and a lot of silent cinema.
Yeah.
Silent cinema in its prime is a lot like the 70s. There's some, I mean, it got very personal. Some of those movies are very personal films and epic. But I like you know all the films of the 70s.
Yeah, you're breaking up again.
I was just saying, what else is on that? I only got about 5 more minutes. Everything we.
Okay, man. Yeah, you're like right now. You're like Wayne's World 2, where it's like I'll have a with it. Right.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you perfect.
Okay, there's a bit of a lag. We'll just blast through it. We've got Grease, Apocalypse Now, The Rocky Horror Picture Show. Anything to say about those three?
I love Grease.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with that one.
Me too. And then we got One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is, again, another classic film.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Nicholson steals the show in that film. I love it. Definitely not a feel-good film, I guess you could say, but I still love it.
No, not at all. And then number 4, Alien, which you can say so much about that film. For me, it's just, yeah, amazing. At this point, we're just like, yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome.
Yeah, Alien. It's hard to go wrong with Alien.
And then the top 3, which I think could probably be a good argument for actually the top 3 films. Not my personal top 3, but you know, number 3, Clockwork Orange, number 2, Star Wars, and number 1, The Godfather.
Wow, that's actually a really good top 3.
Yeah.
Of course.
The Shining 70s, or was that 1980? Just at the
80s.
end. Yeah, 1980. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Clockwork Orange, I love. Of course, The Godfather, I love, and Star Wars. I like Star Wars Episode 2 better than all the other ones.
Oh yeah, Attack of the Clones. You kidding me?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Man, that scene where he's running through the field on top of that. uh, well, I guess that it is time for the stream to come to an end.
Yeah, we're sorry
Do you
about
have
the
any
technical
last words to
difficulties.
say, Luke?
No, just thanks
Yeah.
for watching. I hope this is barely watchable, but it is what it is. And yeah, thanks for watching, everyone.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry, I just thought of something, so I just started laughing. But thank you guys for watching. If you have any other questions that you want to ask us, just put them. Sorry, something really came into my brain and I can't get it out. But thank you guys very much for watching, and yeah, if you have any other suggestions for other live streams you want us to do, just leave it down in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a chill-tastic day.